My name is Charles of Mixa. I'm the proprietor behind Mixa cricket rearing. And at Mixa farm, we do make bread which is enriched by crickets. And this is my story. My journey to insect farming came when I visited some workshop, and while I was there was an NGO that wanted someone who could fabricate some equipment that they could use for cricket rearing. As I talked about my background of fabrication of materials that add value to agricultural produce, someone identified me to be the savior in the NGO where they could find someone to fabricate what could help them, equipment that could help them to rear crickets. And they asked me if I was interested to join as a project partner of the then Flying Food, and I accepted. So I was a project partner in charge of equipment, fabrication, and while on that, at one particular time, they requested me to join a trip in Southeast Asia where a lot of crickets are being reared. So when I went there, I realized that most farmers in Southeast Asia, especially where I visited was Konko in Thailand, and I realized that this was something good for my country. Good for my country because the crickets are not labor intensive when you are rearing them. So I could identify the business with my mother, who is old, wants to do something, but many times she cannot do hard labor. This is something that we do in a shade, very good for older people, very good for the youth, because the youth, I realized that they want to do things which don't expose them to hot sun. So that's how I became a cricket farmer, because when I came back with a different mindset. I wanted to do something different from what is being done here. And of course, being in the project, I happened to know the values of consuming crickets. Benefits of cricket consumption are enormous. Number one, crickets have a lot of protein. If you compare to fish, beef, even pork, crickets have very high protein content. So when children who are malnourished eat crickets, within just a matter of 2 weeks, then they become normal. Those children who have kwashiorkor, when they consume crickets, within a very short time, they become normal. Even the swollen stomach goes. We have done also research on this, and we did some experiments with the street children, and the result is enormous. Number two, women usually have their menstrual cycles. When they have their menstrual flow, they lose a lot of zinc. When they consume crickets, they replenish what has been lost during the menstrual flow. Number three, men need a lot of zinc for their sexuality, and this they obtain very easily from crickets, and is a very favorable source of zinc. Instead of going for very expensive multivitamins, cricket comes in very cheaply. And you don't need much in order to achieve this. Maybe if you eat 1 or 2 crickets in a week, that is just fine. When the women who are expectant, they usually have a tendency of eating what I call picker material. In my language, we call it odoa. But these stones have been known to cause cancer to the women and their born babies, but in the long run, so they don't notice it. cricket is a very good source of what they are looking for in the picker material, basically calcium and iron. So all these are points that will tell us that crickets are the feed of the future. Now, when I got into this space, I realized that this is a new thing, but I also realized that some times back, our grandfathers used to eat crickets. But now when I looked at why did the consumption of crickets drop, and the particular answer that I came up with is they used to get them from the wild, but because of invasion due to agriculture, the crickets have been disappearing in the wild. Same thing that happened in Asia, but now they saw that as a problem and they found that domestication of crickets is the best way to have it abundant any other time of the year. So when I came in with the idea of rearing in different ways from what I saw in Asia, because the temperatures seem to be a bit different. But still, in Asia, the consumption has been done over time and they know crickets is for consumption. But in Kenya, and I may say in East Africa in general, people have not been eating crickets. So we meet obstacles because people have never known that crickets are edible. But my happiness is the youth identify with change. So when you tell the youth that the crickets can be eaten and they can give you 1, 2, 3 benefits, they are willing to try. And again, when they eat it, they find it is very tasty. And they ask for more and they buy. The older people, however, are a bit rigid because they have not been used to eating it. And some people adopt, but others don't. When you go to countries, and I can specify in our region, there is the DRC, where the consumption of crickets is nothing new. They eat insects. But in Kenya, eating of insects is something that has not been done over the past years. So naturally, when we ventured into it, we had to find a way of getting people get the health benefits first without clearly just eating the cricket as a whole. So what we did is we came up with a way of drying the crickets. After we dry it, then we mill it into fine powder. After we mill it into fine powder, then we use it in baked materials. We can use it in bread, we can use it in cookies, we can use it in making scones, so that when someone is consuming it, they don't see the actual cricket. So they just know the cricket is there, but they don't see it, and in so doing, they are able to uptake the cricket, and over time, they see the health values, and they are converts into cricket consumption. We basically make what the people around are used to taking. So the bulk of what we are making here is bread. So the bread has been the major product that we are making from crickets, and it is really consumed. The other product that we are making is the flour, because when you want people to be converted, you bring them into what you want them to do slowly by slowly. So we're also making the cricket powder for sale. So when they come, they buy the powder. Now it is up to them to go and lick it if they want. They'll still get the nutrients. It's up to them to use it as a food additive. They still get what they want. And some people also use it for baking bread. Now the majority of the customers, however, don't come from this area, because now people are enlightened, and when people read, they realize that crickets are beneficial to human health. So the other question is, how do I get it? And we just get calls. Many times we send through security, through G4S to Nairobi, Mombasa, and other Kenyan cities. Now, the major challenge that we have encountered in cricket rearing is the fact that it is a new venture. As much as I've seen firsthand in another country how it is done, and when I came back, I did exactly that, but it failed. It failed because the environmental conditions are different. The way I built the house, housing the crickets, I had to modify over and over again to suit the Kenyan system. So the major challenge that we get is the fact that this is a new venture. If you have an issue, there's nobody to turn to because it is equally new to the agricultural officers. So you are the one, I am the one, Mixa is the one to originate information. So that means you have a lot of tasks to see the problem and get the solution to the problem by yourself. So the fact that it is new is one of the major challenges. When I was getting into cricket rearing, when I visited Asia, I was told that crickets don't have any diseases. So that was a big plus to rearing crickets. However, sometime in 2016, I had an outbreak of a bacterial infection, and it destroyed everything. So that went against what I had been told, that crickets don't have any diseases. But luckily enough, I was from a background of chicken rearing. So with my little information, I started giving them antibiotics, which I used to give to chicken. Unfortunately, it worked. So the challenge, the major challenge is actually the fact that it is a new venture. The other challenge concerns the consumption, because people have not been used to the fact that crickets are edible. So when you tell people of the health benefits, when you tell them it can be consumed, just like I've said, the youth, they quickly want to try, but the older people are a bit rigid. Now, for someone who wants to venture into cricket rearing, you can start in various ways. You can have very minimal starting point, and very minimal means you just go out into the wild, trap the crickets in a way that I can advise. There's a way of trapping them. As long as you can trap about 50, then you are good to go. Because when you trap the 50, the law is usually that the females are more. So if you have 50, maybe you'll have about 30 females and 20 males. And then when they mate, every cricket, female cricket, will lay about 300 to 500 eggs. And that means that it is very easy to start. Now, when you want to start what I would call minimally, someone needs to have about 10,000 shillings. That means this money will be used to make a reasonable hideout for the crickets. That could be a crate, that could be a bucket. You'll need this money to make to buy the hideouts, which we usually use egg trays. You'll just use this money to buy drinkers, what they used to drink, and you are good to go. When you start in this way and you are able to produce, let's say, 1 kilo of cricket. 1 kilo of cricket, the cost of producing it could be about 150 shillings. But what you get out of it is 700 shillings. So we can extrapolate to see, depending on your level of starting, what you can get depending on where you are at that particular time. Now, the eggs need to be put in a place which will attain temperatures of about 28 to 32 degrees centigrade. A little fluctuations here and there may not be an issue, but we don't need a very big drop. And that's why we are doing it in a unit that has been cemented, so that the cement, the cement wall helps to regulate the temperatures. Then again, the windows are also used to regulate the temperatures. You can see that we have thermometers that tell us what the day temperatures are. We have one that tells us the highest temperature and the lowest temperature used. Now, apart from the temperatures attained, crickets need very clean water. they are very clean creatures, and any exposure to that, you will just find them dying one by one. So they need a very clean environment. They need clean water that humans can drink. Now, crickets, like humans, like chicken, they need balanced diet. They need carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and they also need minerals. So what we do a feed formulation that contains all this, and the constituents of the feed is what I got when I went to my visit in Asia, and the percentages that I'm using to date are what I got from my visit. However, for someone who may not do that, chicken feed can be milled into smaller particles, and that will suffice for cricket feeding. At Mixa Farm, we are also front runners in encouraging people to eat crickets and also to rear crickets. So what we usually advise is not just doing it for business, but also using the same for your consumption. Now, we usually offer training to farmers and entrepreneurs who want to venture into cricket rearing. Now, these farmers are usually all over the country. We start by training them on what they need to rear the crickets. Now, because of COVID, this we have been doing virtually. And we also give them the seed for rearing. So we remove them from the hassle of going to look for the crickets in the wild. So we sell eggs all over. Kitengela, we have quite a Meru, Nairobi, all over the country. And when we sell to someone eggs, then we take them through until they are through the cycle to get eggs themselves. And because we have been doing this for a long period of time, our customers find it easy to produce the crickets, unlike us who had to go through a lot of challenges, because for them we have answered, we have had solutions to the problems that they could have. Going forward, the world is changing. In other Western countries, they have embraced consumption of crickets because as time goes by, the population is increasing, but the natural resource, land, does not increase. The protein sources we are used to, like meat, in the future, we are not going to have even space for rearing animals. So going forward, I see cricket rearing and consumption to be the in thing because it needs a very small space, number one. Number two, it needs very little resources. When you produce 1 kilo of crickets, the crickets consumed about 1.7 kilos of biomass. But when you produce 1 kilo of meat, the cow consumed about 25 kilos of biomass. But the proteins you get from crickets is more valuable than the one you get from meat. So going forward, I'm seeing cricket rearing to be the solution to most of our food security. The other bit is that when you rear animals, there is more depletion of ozone layer than when you rear crickets. So going forward, I'm seeing cricket rearing and consumption to be the solution to our food insecurity. That was my story. I'm very curious to know what you are doing in your agribusiness venture. Share your story.